Good afternoon. Back in March of 2020, when I first announced that the first case of COVID-19 in Missouri was here in St. Louis County, none of us knew how many lives would be impacted by this virus or how long this pandemic would last. But we saw very quickly that not only would this become a public health crisis, but a humanitarian and economic crisis as well. Businesses shut down, jobs were lost. With limited or no income, families were facing eviction. And housing instability would mean more people unable to safely quarantine to safely stay away from those who are not immediate family members, unable to avoid a very contagious and deadly virus. Eviction moratoriums here and throughout the country have helped families stay in their homes. Earlier this month, I signed an eviction moratorium providing more time to get $26.6 million in federal rental assistance funds to landlords and tenants. The guidelines for the funds, known as the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, came with deadlines. We had to get at least 65% of the funds out the door by September 30th, and the remainder into the hands of landlords and tenants by the end of the year. Otherwise, the funds would be pulled back. I'm happy to report that we have issued more than $18 million in rental assistance to nearly 3,000 households. The average amount per household is $5,800, and that $18 million exceeds the 65% due out the door by tomorrow. Like many similar programs across the country, the rollout began slowly. Like other states, counties, and cities, we hired a third-party administrator to run the program, and that went through a competitive bid process. And once that administrator was in place, we worked with him to ramp up staffing, including working weekends, and sought clarity from the federal government on the application process. We are now averaging a 10-day processing time for applications, and we are confident we will have all the funds out the door by the end of the year. And we know the need is great. We have received over 10,000 applications seeking more than $45 million in rental assistance, which is more than what we have. St. Louis County, however, is expected to get another round of emergency rental assistance funding totaling $29.8 million. And we can access those federal dollars once we have distributed the current round of funds. We know that rental assistance will be needed well into next year, so this new funding source will be an integral part of helping our residents meet their most basic needs. We plan on putting out a request for proposal this week for an administrator to oversee the second round of funding so that we can be ready to keep the rental assistance program going without delay once the new funds are in hand. This pandemic highlighted the great disparities in our county in almost every facet of life, including access to health care, healthy food options, and job opportunity. The rental assistance program has highlighted the disparity in housing stability in St. Louis County. For example, 3,517 applications were received from District 1 compared to 127 in District 7. Breaking that down a bit more, we received 1,675 applications from the 63136 zip code in North County compared to 5 applications from the 63005 zip code in West St. Louis County. We are grateful for the federal assistance programs that have been offered throughout this pandemic. With the CARES Act funds we received last year, $6.9 million went to rental assistance. And this year, we were awarded $193 million from President Biden's American Rescue Plan Act, often referred to as the ARPA. As the council decides how to allocate those funds, I'm confident housing and utility assistance will be among the priorities. We are far from being out of this pandemic, and we are seeing a weekly average number of COVID cases drop slightly, which is good. More people are getting vaccinated, and we have strong compliance with mask wearing, including mask requirements in our school districts. And with the new mask mandate put into place in St. Louis County on Monday, we are confident that will help to work and to curb this virus. With masks and vaccines, our economy is recovering, more jobs are being created, and more people can stay in their homes. To learn more about the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, please go to revivestl.com and click on St. Louis County Resources. That tab is located on the home page. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Dr. Chapter, can you talk about, with the people, what do you estimate is still left over as far as people and landlords that are in need of assistance? Do you have a number?
Well, it's about probably about $8.5 million. But with 10,000 applications to be in the pipeline and well, thousands left to be processed, we have more applications than we have funds. So it's important that we get through these rental assistance funds by the end of the year, because then the federal government could pull them back if we haven't spent them. But as soon as we get through these funds, we get access to the next round of funding, and that's around $28 million.
How does it work as far as with what the Supreme Court ruling came down about the moratorium on evictions? How does that affect the county? How do you get around that?
Well, we can still have a local ordinance on moratoriums, and we did, and that expires in the end of this week. But that gave us the time we needed to start processing those extra rounds of funding, the applications for emergency rental assistance. The federal government changed the rules just a few weeks ago, which made it much easier to process those applications and get those funds in the hands of landlords and tenants. So that rule change came late in the process, and we really needed another month or so to get those rental assistance funds out and to try and make all the effort that we could to keep people in their homes while we're getting those rental assistance applications processed and getting those funds in the hands of the people who needed them.
Is this sheriffs and courts, are they working with you on that since you're coming up on a deadline?
Well, the sheriff and the courts will process evictions in their normal manner. It takes a little bit of time to do that, but the ordinance was in effect and it was honored. Yeah, there are exceptions to the evictions, but in general, the eviction moratorium was in place with the few exceptions that were outlined in the ordinance.
What about after the deadline? What about if those people still don't have assistance?
Well, the program is there, and we've got a third-party administrator, and a lot of other folks, our partners in the community, our nonprofits, are working with us to process as many applications as possible. So the assistance for emergency rental assistance was there before the eviction moratorium expires, and it'll be there after the eviction moratorium expires too. It'll be there into next year. So we've got a pretty good infrastructure for emergency rental assistance through our community partners and through our third-party administrator. It's working smoothly, and it's available to anyone who qualifies.
I just want to clarify, make sure I'm clear on this. What's the date when the eviction moratorium expires?
End of this week.
The end of this week?
Yes.
So if those people don't have their application in yet, is there a chance that they can be evicted then?
Well, there's always a chance that someone can be evicted, and no program takes account of all contingencies. But like any program at the local, state, or federal level, this program helps a lot of people. 3,000 families so far, 10,000 applications in the pipeline. But if there's someone who hasn't applied yet, they can still apply. And if their landlord knows that their application is in process, then we'll process that application as quickly as we can and hopefully get the funds to the people who need them.
I'm monopolizing this again, but for the people who don't have access to the computer, how do they go about this?
Well, they can call our phone number, which I don't have in front of me, but I hope that you will find it and broadcast it for me.
I will.
We will get that for you, Mary.
Thank you.
Dr. Page, we have a couple of questions from the Post-Dispatch. Regarding the moratorium, do you think it should be extended beyond the end of the week?
At this point, we don't plan on extending the moratorium. We have extended it up until the end of this week, and we think that gave us a lot of time to adjust to the new federal rules that made it a lot easier for us to get our rental assistance funds moving into the hands of tenants and landlords. We have a lot of applications in the pipeline to process. We've already processed $18 million worth of applications, and we're going to continue to do that. We'll continue to process rental assistance into next year for anyone who qualifies. And we encourage people to keep contacting us. And you can even apply for rental assistance for up to 3 months in advance. You can demonstrate that need on your application.
And those details on that are on that website.
Yeah, I would refer everyone to the website, revivestl.com, and click on the rental assistance tab.
Anyone else have anything?
I do. See, they let me on only once in a while, so then I have a whole bunch of questions. I don't want to beleaguer this point, but what about the mask mandate? Where does it stand right now? Well, there was one guy in the council meeting last night that was wearing a mask.
So there are several questions there about the mask mandate and where it stands. We have a mask mandate in St. Louis County. We've had one for a couple of months. We also have had a restraining order that prevented us from enforcing that mask mandate. At this point, the only way that restraining order has a practical impact is it limits our ability to enforce a mask mandate in our county buildings. What we've seen throughout St. Louis County in just about every business setting is that folks just want to know what the right thing is to do, and they do it. The incidences of confrontation around masks are pretty small, and really nobody's interested in that. People are putting masks on, and that's what allowed us to keep our kids in school, and that's what has allowed us to see the cases in St. Louis County plateauing and starting to go in the right direction. So if we keep our masks on and continue to work really hard to get people vaccinated, then we can find our way through this pandemic and be done with it.
And put your medical hat on for me now, your doctor's hat. What do you see with the fall? Do you have concerns?
Well, there's a lot of milestones that are on the horizon in this pandemic that are exciting. And that includes, hopefully by the end of this month or the beginning of November, vaccine availability for kids 5 to 11. And that's a really big deal. That's a subset of our community that can't get vaccinated and that we're protecting by getting vaccinated ourselves, those of us who can, and wearing masks. And that's especially important around schools. So that opportunity opens up. Boosters are now available for eligible populations. I would encourage those who are due a booster to get it. And we'll continue to work. Various forms of vaccine mandates are now being applied depending on your employer. We'll continue that conversation. But we really do need to get more people vaccinated. And as we do that, I believe that things are going to get better. I don't expect us to ever go back to restrictions on capacities or any of those things we saw across the country and in the St. Louis region last year. But I think we're going to be, we'll be with masks for a few more weeks. We'll start to talk about how that might change based on guidance from our public health experts and the pandemic task force. Those health experts have guided all of our decisions for the past year and a half, and we'll continue to talk to them about what we need to do going forward. But I'm happy to see that we've been able to keep kids in in-person schooling. That's really important. I'm happy to see that we haven't had to have any more restrictions on businesses. Wearing a mask is not that terrible of a thing to do to get us through this. And if we can do that and continue to get vaccinated, then we'll be in a really good spot.
Then I'm out of questions.
Don't forget to get your flu shot. That's part of winter illnesses. It certainly confuses and complicates the picture with COVID, so it's time.
Hey, Dr. Page, if you want to give it that phone number, it's 806-0910.
Okay, so I'll repeat the phone number, 806-0910, 806-0910 if you need help with rental assistance and you don't have access to a computer, and that is area code 314. Thank you.
Thank you.